I'm going to continue my discussion here with Mount Zion 2:11 on the book of Revelation. And I'm not dealing with a specific chapter here. I'm dealing with a view that some people hold on the book of Revelation, and that is the people who hold the historical view of Revelation. And what they do is want to claim that the Catholic Church is the harlot or the beast of Revelation. Now, this historical view, if you really look at it, it begins to read like an old Moore's almanac with all the speculation and guesswork that is being done. And what they actually try to do is say that the book of Revelation describes the whole of church history. And they would take the 7 churches in Revelation. They would say, well, this church started here and ended here, so now we're through with that period. So we pick up another period and say this church starts here and ends here, and they go on with different dates and so forth until they come down to what they think now is we're living in the last church, Laodicean church. So we're living in the last days. Several things wrong with that. Well, first of all, according to the apostles in the Bible, we've always lived in the last days. It's not something we're going to run into way down the road. The apostles taught we were already living in the last days. From the ascension of Christ, he could come back at any time, and they lived their life as though Christ would come back tomorrow. So this thing about living in the last days, it's always been there. It's not something new that it just sprang up. So they have a big problem with thinking we're living in the last days now, when the apostles in the early church thought we were living in the last days then. They seem to have some kind of problem with that. The second thing is the date setting they use. For instance, they'll have one church starts at one particular point in time and ends at another. A church may begin in 310 and end in 500, and another church picks up. So they have different stages of the church ending at different periods in time. And again, a problem they have with this is that they can't seem to agree on the dates. You'll see different dates when people try to use this church history thing. And you'll see some even have overlapping dates. I think Random 331 uses Ruckman, and Ruckman just says, well, it began in 1900. So you see a problem there with all this date setting. And the main problem is, where did they get this stuff from? Has any Protestant ever stopped to think that if the Bible is as clear as they say it is, why do they have overlapping dates or different dates? And where in the Bible do they even get the dates from? Have you ever seen any of them try to give you any documentation as to where they get these dates from? No, you don't find it. And like I said earlier, it's just nothing more than an old Moore's almanac of nothing more than speculation and guesswork. Another problem that I see that they have with the historical view has to do with the original audience. If you remember the book of Revelation, at the beginning of it, it talks about that it is a source of encouragement for those who can overcome the persecution that was going on then. It's also a source of blessing for those who receive it and understand the prophecy and adhere to it. So the original audience who was hearing this, they were hearing about an evil empire that was persecuting them at the time. The church wasn't persecuting the church at the time. It was an evil empire persecuting them. So it seemed very unlikely that in the context that the focus on would be on the fall of an ecclesiastical body that would come years later. And it was in development then, but become years later. I just can't see the original audience looking at some ecclesiastical body that would turn evil and destroy everything, so to speak, according to these people. So they have a problem there as well when they look at the original audience and what they understood it to mean. There's no way they would have ever seen it to be the Catholic Church. So they have to, through their own Moore's almanac experience, then begin to speculate and try to push things into the text that simply aren't there. Again, remember, the supporters of this view about the harlot, pretty much they're saying that they've been alienated from God and have become apostate. And this is what they say the Catholic Church has done, has become apostate. And to them, the apocalypse will be portraying Catholicism as an institute that at one time in history constituted the people of God, but at some point forsook God. And they would presumably believe that it became corrupt and abandoned the gospel. Well, you know, I've been going to Catholic Church for quite a while now, and it seems to me that every Sunday, even in every Mass every day, they're proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. they have never denied God at all. Never. Give me one document in history where the church has ever denied God. And they proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ every day. Now, where they could conjure up in their mind that the Catholic Church has forsaken God and presumably abandoned the gospel, well, I guess it's because they go to a Protestant church and never have been in the Catholic Church to see that the gospel of Jesus Christ is portrayed in every Mass. And not only that, we are encouraged when we leave to go out and tell others about the gospel of Jesus Christ. So they have a problem with that as well. Another thing that I think they have a problem with is the beast imagery in Revelation. And what they want to do, the proponents of this view want to regard the figure of the beast as the papal or a symbol of Catholicism, which creates a big problem for those who hold the historical view. You see, the relationship, it all has to do with the relationship between the beast and the harlot. These two figures are often treated by some as though they have some referent, but such a position is difficult to reconcile with the rest of the book of Revelation in portraying these two distinct characters. There are two distinct characters in the book of Revelation, and they're having a hard time trying to work these back and forth. Sometimes you see them shifting them around. Some will say, well, the Catholic Church is the beast of 13, and the Pope is the Antichrist of chapter 17. Some will say the church is the beast of chapter 13. Others will say then the Pope is the Antichrist of chapter 17. So they're having trouble with this imagery, and they have to shift it back and forth depending on which book of the Bible, book of Revelation they're in, or which chapter of Revelation they're in. They have a hard time shifting these back and forth to do what? To make it fit. So it doesn't fit naturally into the book of Revelation because it's not something that the early church would have ever understood. And it would be foolish to me for a man with the character of the Apostle John to have written a book, or it would have been to me foolish of God for the Apostle John to have written a book to give encouragement and comfort to people, and they couldn't understand that book. I think there are people who understand what I'm saying by that. What good is it a book of comfort and encouragement if you can't understand what the book is saying? So they're having quite a few problems with trying to portray the Catholic Church. One of the biggest things to me is this: the historical view attempts to interpret the apocalypse by the development of the church in the last 19 centuries, but they fail to, and they're doing this, and they fail to take into consideration what is going on outside of Europe. And this is where they're trying to do a lot of the interpretation from, is based on what's happening in Europe, and it's concerned mainly with the Middle Ages and the Reformation, and does not take into account the development of the church since the 1500s. So what you have through the historical view that tries to proclaim and this is it in a nutshell to me, here's what you have in those people who try to claim that the Catholic Church is the Protestant or the Harlot of Revelation. This is a natural outgrowth of the Protestant Reformation. They had to have something to blame it on as to why they separated from the Catholic Church. They had to have some reason to justify their own existence. And so to call the church the harlot or the apostate church or the harlot or the beast of Revelation is nothing more to me than an outgrowth of their own failure to understand the Catholic Church. So I hope this has helped you to understand the views that these people come up with sometimes, and how really unbiblical they really are. Give me something in the Bible so I can look at it and verify what you're saying is all I'm asking. But yet they come back and give me nothing that I can verify it with. Hope this has in some way helped someone to understand it more, and I look forward to your comments on it. Until next time, I want to thank Mount Zion 211 for his courtesy in going through this discussion with me, and quite frankly, I think the man is doing an excellent job with his presentation. Until next time, this has been Golly saying, God bless.